Roll call.
Ms. Dong?
Here.
Mr. Crouch? Ms. Hernandez?
Present.
Mr. Jaramillo? Ms. Quintero?
Present. Approval of the agenda?
Signing of the register.
Oh, thank you.
Let's see.
So, for all of those that have not signed the back of the register, could you please do so?
Ms. Quintero.
And Ms. Dunn.
I'd like to move that we approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Second.
I move that we approve this agenda.
Second.
Okay, nice.
Roll call.
Ms. Dong?
Yes.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye.
Ms. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye. Governing board comments? Ms. Dunn?
I believe we already met since the graduation,
Yes.
and there haven't been any other functions that I've gone to, so I'm going to pass today.
Thank you. Ms. Hernandez?
Just very quickly. So I just wanted to quickly highlight, so one of our alumni, Representative A. Hernandez, my sister, she was able to get funding in our budget. So now our school resource officers will be trained properly. So I believe it was $1 million towards that. So very excited about that. Because that means to me that we'll have our students will be safer, right? So very exciting. Thank you.
Mr. Crouch?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Madam Chairman, members of the governing board, members of the audience. Actually, it doesn't slow down in the summer, so we're getting ramped up for the school year. We have a lot going on in summer school, which I'll do a more formal report next time we meet. We have not only do we have our traditional summer school happening, we have a algebra academy still with the University of Arizona there at Desert View High School, as well as a mariachi camp going on over at Sunnyside High School. We have 2 lab schools happening where we have groups of teachers working with students in an observation/teaching model that we've tried last year in the math, 6th grade math, and found great success. And so we're replicating that with our 8th and 9th grade teachers who are teaching mathematics next year, along with a group of roughly about 30 students who are rising freshmen, who are actually in their kind of going through some concepts and actually working with the teachers, and then they're observing each other as a model. We're doing the same over at Gallegos with our ELA curriculum. So it's a really hands-on professional development opportunity that I think it's going to be a model that I think we're going to try to continue to replicate, because it's got high impact, particularly because they're working directly with students as they're learning as well. So that great things happening there. We're also getting ready for our launch for our teachers coming back. So we actually start that conversation now, starting to kind of prep whatever new video we're going to do, right? So we have to change it up. Mr. Robles is gone, so we're going to have to change the theme from driving to figuring out maybe we're walking, or maybe we can have a cameo from Mr. Robles on the next video opening day or something. We'll figure something clever out. So those are kind of things that are happening as we all are trying to manage both vacation schedules and getting through our summer school as well. So that concludes our report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no recognitions, but we do have call to the audience. I'm so excited. We haven't had this many in a long time. So, Richard Hernandez.
Good evening, everyone. I'm clearly no stranger to the Sunnyside School Board or the community. I'm a graduate from Sunnyside back in 1975, just a couple of days ago. I also still live in the district. I am registered to vote here. And for the record, I'm Richard Hernandez. I wanted to first say to the board that one of the sagest decisions you ever made was to employ Mr. Holmes as your leader. He really has propelled Sunnyside past all of the hardships that we had with his predecessor. And as we move forward, we know we have a challenge all over southern Arizona. Some of you board members know that I'm involved with several school districts. Enrollment is down everywhere. That means less funding from the state and other sources. So we're going to have to stretch that dollar. So one of the things on the agenda that I want to visit with reminds me of when I was a kid in the 60s. We had one pair of shoes for Sunday church, right? You had to put that polish on and use a little elbow grease and make them look really nice, and they looked new, but they were old, probably hand-me-downs, right? So I was at Santa Clara Elementary School just a few days ago, outside one of the portables, and a seam was falling down and needs to be painted. I know the needs that we have. I know we have needs for just fresh paint in some places, but maybe a new air conditioner. I saw some of the equipment behind here that our maintenance people use. Wow, it's being held together with a coat hanger. It's amazing. It is time to move forward. I am here to pledge my support for a bond for maintenance and operation. I've shared my thoughts with Mr. Holmes, which he can do with you individually. I'm here to volunteer to help get it done. Time is of the essence because it's almost election time, as you know. The legislature made some changes recently that went into effect by law just a few days ago. So if you're not aware, you should become aware. So I want to dedicate my time to help you get that done. We need to do what we used to do as kids. Put some polish on that shoe and work on it, right? Let's give our kids a place to be proud of. A fresh coat of paint might do it, or a new air conditioner might do it, whatever we need. But I do want to pledge that, and I want to say thank you, and I think it's great that we're moving forward. A lot of work to be done yet. Is that not true, Mr. Holmes? But we're definitely on the right path. So that's why I'm here to dedicate that, my time and effort. If you want it, you can let me know what you plan to do, but we need that. I do want to warn you on one thing. There should be no funding for administration. If you do that, you're going to jeopardize people voting for this, because all you have to do is put a list out there and the neighbors can go to their neighborhood school and say, oh my God, you're right, look at that horrible mess that needs to be fixed. Once we bring visual aids, it'll happen. Thank you, and I'm available to you. Mr. Holmes has my information.
Tori Schroeder?
So my name is Tori Schroeder. I am a teacher at Desert View High School, and I am also representing the Sunnyside Education Association. The first time I was up to speak to the governing board was about 4.5 years ago. We had had our salaries frozen for as long as I had been in Sunnyside at that point, and before that. And we had a lot of teachers who spoke after me about them really struggling to pay basic necessities: transportation, student loans, health insurance for their students. A lot of those teachers were my personal friends and colleagues, and a lot of them are not teaching or are not in Arizona anymore. We lost some great teachers because of that. But we've also, in the past years, kept and recruited some great teachers. I was in English Language Arts curriculum writing just last week, and not only the dedication and the passion that you would have seen in that room, but the sheer teaching excellence and talent you would have seen is amazing. So I'm looking at the proposed certified salary schedule, and I want you to think about that as an investment in the people who work with our kids every day, because those are the people who are making some very expert decisions in the summer. They are teaching their new colleagues. They are doing everything that they can to make Sunnyside a better place, and I think that's a great return on our investment. Like I said, I know we have more to go, and we have other people that touch the lives of our students as well that we have to consider thinking about, but I would just like to say to think about that, and also that I say thank you to the people who are involved in the IBB process, where we were I mean, it's a good process where we can actually talk about everything out in the open and everything gets put on the table, and those discussions are real and genuine, and they aren't always easy, but they happen. And that's also a great thing, and if that's the conclusion we come to after that process, I think that's also a good conclusion.
Ms. Quintero,
Ms. Dunn?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Dong?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Aye.
Ms. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye. So on the agenda is M&O override election information?
Good evening. Tonight, we would like to take this opportunity to explore with the governing board the possibility of your considering the calling of an M&O override election for November 2019. As the board will recall, from 1987 to 2007, the district had successful override elections which allowed the district to generate additional funds for M&O purposes. The 2007 override authorization expired in 2014-15, and that was after various attempts to renew the override in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, and again 2017. So that has been 6 times that we tried for reauthorization, and I have a very good feeling that number 7 will be the lucky one. The failures that have occurred as a result of our inability to reauthorize the election by our voters or approve the reauthorization has impacted our ability to provide additional resources to educational services, operational services to our students and to our staff, and limited our ability to attract and retain our employees. Of the 11 major Pima County school districts in the Tucson area, 9 of those have currently an M&O override election that is authorized by their voters. Tucson Unified School District does not, yet they have over $64 million of DSEC monies, which would be equivalent to about a 17% override would they have to go for authorization. And Sunnyside is the other major school district. Tonight we're bringing some information to the governing board for you to consider directing administration to prepare the documents necessary for the calling of a November 2019 M&O override election, which at 10% would generate $9.3 million of additional M&O funds. That $9.3 million would result in additional tax to the voters of the school, or the taxpayers of the school district, in the amount of $2.08 per $100 of assessed valuation. For the average homeowner occupied home, that would mean approximately where is it? I'll take my glasses off to see, can you believe it? $169 a year, which is roughly $13 a month additional taxes for owner home occupied residents. In our school district, we're kind of unique in that the makeup of the assessed valuation of the school district is roughly 25% homeowner, 75% either commercial business, utility, renters, which basically translates as follows. For every dollar of additional revenues we generate, 25 cents of that additional dollar is paid by the homeowner, 75 cents of the dollars paid by commercial business, utilities, and renters. So if you look at like Canada Foothills, which has not as much commercial business or utilities, theirs is roughly like 60 or 70% of every dollar is generated by homeowners. So we're fortunate in that regard, in that 25% of the taxpayers can tell the other 75% to pay more taxes. So attached to the agenda item is some information that was provided by Stifel, our financial advisors that have assisted us with our bonds And is there? Okay, I don't know if Erica Coombs is here, but she's the one that prepared this for us. And basically what it outlines is some dates in terms of what, well, first of all, it's a snapshot of what it will impact as far as the average homeowner. Half that's assessed at $80,960. That's the average assessed valuation of a home in Sunnyside. Then by law, you're required to publish this information in the informational pamphlet. Give the value of the average homeowner, half the value of a homeowner, and then twice the value of the average homeowner, and then the average business in the school district. So the average value of a business in Sunnyside is $839,000. They would end up paying $3,148 more in property taxes as a result of the override. So, this is the deadline or the time schedule for the governing board if you consider giving the green light to proceed. Today we're presenting the information. On the 25th of June, we'd come back with the official resolution calling for the election. On July 18th, we'd notify the county elections office of your election or your decision. On July 18th, we'd send the voter information pamphlet to the printer for translation and printing. The county elections office will do that. And then August 2nd, the county school office prepares the first draft of the voter information pamphlet. August 9th, the governing board post statements are due at the county school superintendent's office. So my understanding is that you would have to submit individual post statements. And that's it for that handout. The other important item, this one, the other one, the tax. What is the tax? You go to the taxes. Is another attachment? Yeah, attachment. So it's taxes. The last one. What you see in this slide is what would the tax rate look like if the voters said yes in November 2019, and compare that information to prior years. If you look at in 2007, we had a primary tax rate of 5.689. The primary side, which is the money that's generated for the regular M&O budget. Then we had a secondary tax rate, which pays the bonds. The outstanding bonds at that time was $1.41 per 100. And then the override, secondary the tax rate, which pertained to the override amount, which at that time was around $8.6 million, was additional $2.06. So the total tax rate back in 2007 was $9.15 per $100 of assessed valuation. Now, if you go down, all the way down, when you start, the override was defeated, or the reauthorization was not approved, so the override had to be phased down. It was phased out in 2015 to zero. If you look at the total tax rate, it went down from $9 down to $8 to $7, $7.666. Right now, in the first year that we didn't have an override, it went to $6.03. And then currently for 2019, the total tax rate is $5.66 per 100. For next year, I'm projecting that the tax rate for the FY20, which is this coming year budget, is going to be $5.53 per 100. And if the override, if the voters say yes to the override in November, that override will not take effect until next year, July 1st, 2020. So it'd be that it'll affect the 2021 tax rate, would add an additional $2.08. So it would jump it up to $7.60, rounding up 7.62. Of that 7.62, 208 would be the override tax rate that would be necessary to generate that $9.3 million.
It's still less than.
Which is still less than when we had an $8.6 million override back. If you want to scroll up, scroll up over there. When we had a full override amount for 2007, 8, 9. It was $9.50, 8.14, 7.08. Back in those years, it'd still be less than the highest it was when we had a 10% override back then. The last presentation or last slide I'd like to show you is one of the important things that we need to have the governing board consider, and which will be included in the informational pamphlet. It needs to be included in the resolution. Is exactly telling the voters why do we need this override? And if you,
Oh, question.
Could I ask
Yes,
a
ma'am.
quick question before we move on from that colored
Okay.
graphs? Just because people will ask me, I think it's great that the 10% this time around is going to cost less than the 10% from
back in
before.
2007,
Back in
8.
2007. Could you explain that to me one more time so that when people ask me why, if it's 10,000, I mean, if it's 10% and 10%, how does it work out that it's going to be less?
What had because of our assessed valuation went up. So when the magic number is how much money is being generated, $9.3 million. That $9.3 million then has to be generated from the assessed valuation of the property in the school district. Back in 2007, it was less. So the tax rate, to generate $9 million on a smaller assessed valuation, you have to have a higher rate to generate that amount. So we have
Okay.
a higher assessed valuation to generate $9.3 million. That's why the rate is lower.
Okay, thank you. Makes sense.
Did Mr. Crouch have any questions?
Does he have any questions?
Mr. Crouch?
Mr. Crouch?
No, I don't have any questions at this time. I would like to thank Mr. Pacinas for the good presentation. Very understandable. Thank you, Mr. Pacinas.
Thank you. The last thing is the suggested language for the informational pamphlet, which basically addresses Mr. Hernandez's concern regarding what is this money going to be used for. And we're just suggesting this. You can give us some input before we come back on the 25th. Because you won't take action until the 25th with official language. One of the suggestions we're having here is the purpose of the override is to increase student academic achievement and family and community engagement. Override funding would provide funds for enhanced athletics, fine arts, enrichment opportunities in support of well-rounded education described in the district's strategic plan and graduate profile adopted by the governing board. The override will also be used or provide revenues needed to revise the classified salary schedule and address the issue of compression that has resulted due to the increase in state of Arizona minimum wage. And that's a commitment that we have to, or we would like to address and promise our classified employees, because that compression is creating some problems where it doesn't value the skills or recognizes the skills through compensation of the different categories of employees that we have. We'll have some crossing guards who are starting in January at $12 an hour, and we'll have some office assistants that have been with us 2 or 3 years making $12 an hour, or custodians who have been with us 6 or 7 years making $12 an hour. So I think we need to address that issue, and that's been one of Superintendent Holmes' commitments to IBB, that would be addressed hopefully with an override that would be passed. So other than that, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Holmes.
Ms. Dunn?
Yeah, just really quick, I really liked some of this language because these things are very important to our community. You know, athletics, you see the crowds that are out there, you know, for the games, you know, all the different games. And you see the students participating in a variety of different athletics, and that, you know, you talk to them about, you know, what keeps them here. And oftentimes it's playing basketball, playing baseball, playing football, running cross country and track. So those are really important. Also, you know, this community is really involved with the arts, all the different arts, whether it be the band, orchestra. You see the community pack in the cafeterias when those concerts occur. So you know, we know that that's very important also for our community. As well as some of these other things that that are being mentioned here. I really like the talk here about the graduate profile. I was just taken aback by this year's graduation rates. I mean, when you went to Desert View, both sides of the fields were packed. Before, you know, you could probably put in one bleacher section both bleachers from both sides. Not this year. In Desert View, both bleachers were completely packed. There were people standing around the sides. It was fantastic. You went to Sunnyside the next night, same thing. Everybody packed the stadium. It was great to see that, and for our community to see more and more and more graduates, and for our community to see those millions of dollars of scholarships that they're getting. I think that's really critical, real important. So I think we need to put some kind of language here of how we're going to continue that. It's a good start, but we need to continue it so that they can see that as we continue to have graduates, as we continue to have them going to colleges and trade schools and other places that they go to get training and education so that they can come back and have really good paying jobs, that it's going to help our community in the long run. It's going to help them with better paying jobs. It's going to help us with, you're talking a little while ago about the increased value of our homes. We need to make sure that they understand that if they pass this override, it's going to give us opportunities that will be able to address the academics of our students, help them continue to move forward with their academics, help our scores continue to rise. And with that happening and with our students continuing to succeed the way they have been succeeding in the last few years, it's going to help our whole community. It's going to help with the property values of our homes. It's going to help the businesses that are in our areas, because our community will be able to afford more. They'll be able to afford to buy things because they have better paying jobs now. They'll even be able to get our high school students can get maybe some of the management jobs at the McDonald's. They don't have to just be the ones that are, the ones that are just doing the burgers and things like that, which are important. But they can get better paying jobs working at these fast food restaurants, working at any restaurant that we have in our community, working at all these different businesses that we have in our community. We have a lot of small businesses in our community, and I think it's fantastic. And the reason I think it's fantastic too is because many of them are owned by our community members. So Sunnyside grads, have come out and bought businesses in our community. And I think that, we also have a large contingency of community members that are no longer having students in the schools. And those are always the ones that we have the hardest time convincing how important it is to put money into the schools, because they don't want their taxes to go up. They don't have students in there. They don't have an investment. But if we can tell them that this will help as far as making the community stronger, if it's going to be helping getting their house to be valued higher, and those kind of things, I think it behooves us to make sure that that's part of our message, that we are going to be making our businesses stronger, our home values stronger, our community stronger, by making sure that we use some of this money to increase student achievement, to increase the graduation rates, to increase the opportunities that we are giving all of our students, as well as opportunities that we are giving to our employees. Many of our employees are Sunnyside grads. And we're talking classifieds, and we're talking certified, and we're talking administrators, we're talking superintendents. We have so many of our employees that are Sunnyside grads, and to be able to help them, I think, is something that our district, our community will also be interested in. So yes, let's do the regular ones that we have, the arts, the sports. We know those are important. Let's make sure that we do something as far as the compensation increases are concerned. I don't want to take any of that off the table. I just want to increase a little bit of the language, and the language that will go out there to talk to the people that are really more interested in how is it going to help them. Let's face it. How will them, agreeing to pay $169 for the average home, how will that help them? And the way it'll help them is increase that house value, increase the businesses, and increase the stability of our community.
Mr. Hernandez?
Just very quickly. So a lot of our staff live in the community as well, so I'm really excited that this is an opportunity that we have to hopefully pass the override this time, right? And this is a comment, but we need not just the buy-in of our community, but also hopefully our staff, right? And everyone at this table, because we cannot go forward with another override election and not have everyone's buy-in, because it's not possible for it to be successful. And then, of course, I'm really excited about our graduation rates, but we still have a long way to go, right? So making sure that our students have the opportunities to either go to a trade school or college, I think investing in these programs is really important. So I'm really excited to see that language in there. So hopefully we all work together to get this done.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes?
Yeah, so I'm listening, and this is helping me bring some become more clear on kind of our message. I think this is where we have to draw a much more clearer straight line between the work that we do as a district and the community's values, right? And that's where I think we've been missing the mark a little, right? And so when I think about drawing that straight line, I'm listening to Ms. Dong, I think about kind of this idea of kind of economic prosperity and development in our community being something that the district can help create, right? So can the district be the hub for economic prosperity and economic development in our community, and how do we draw that straight line, right? And so that's I think where that language has to be a little bit more clear and intentional around, hey, we as a district can make that happen. We can improve home values. We can create more jobs in our community by providing a better quality education for our students, right? And that's the message I think can't get clouded and kind of some, although we want to provide details because we want to make sure people know where the money is going, but not cloud that message that we can help improve your economic lifestyle by creating a better community. And I think if we put those, we can still do these things, I think, in kind of framing it around these kind of comprehensive programs. I think about this work, which is our college and career academies. I can tell you, I don't think a lot of people still know that this actually occurs. Like outside of us here, there's some great work happening in our high schools, but if I went to knock on a door, they're like, you guys are working on these things? I think this is getting lost in the message somehow, and I think somehow if we can let people know what we're doing and that the override actually helps enhance and make these better, which lead to better jobs, which lead to better number of students going to college, better pay, more companies coming here to capitalize on the great students that are being graduates here. I think that could be a better seller than just talking about these individual programs, right? Framing around these issues, this idea of the kind of a competitive wage for our employees who live in the district, because hiring their money can actually help them be better off here. And then this idea of academic achievement, kind of accelerating achievement, right? 'Cause I don't want to lose the fact that we are making progress, but again, that gets lost right in the narrative, right? Can we frame it around acceleration that actually performance outcomes that actually are matching these kind of value systems that I think people who don't have students in here can get behind? Well, you're going to have provide me with a better quality of life because the people that are around me are going to prosper, and so will I.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
I'll just echo what Mr. Holmes said, and the fact is the majority of the voters that turn out in every election are over the age of 50, so a lot of the programs on here might not speak to them,
right.
But having a better community, and maybe they have family members that work in the district. That happens a lot, so I'd like to see somehow the message fine-tuned a little bit more to speak to the reality, right? Unfortunately, the people that turn out the most frequently are over the age of 50.
So she's talking about me, huh?
Hey, we can count on you. Yes. There's nothing wrong with that. Just to clarify, there's nothing wrong with that. All I'm saying is that the message needs to speak to the people that turn out.
Right. What's in it for them? I mean, their argument is, I already had my kids.
Right,
They went
and
to
that's
school.
what
I already
happens.
paid for my kids. Now, how about their grandkids and your kids' kids? Your
Right.
neighbors' kids.
And that's the conversation when I personally will go out door to
Yeah.
door. That's what I'm going to run into
Right.
because I personally don't have kids, but a lot of our most
That's
consistent
fine.
voters might have grandkids
Grandkids.
or might not have any.
Right.
So, right, that message needs to be.
Yeah.
included
And it's proven fact that good schools attract business. Good schools attract housing development. Good schools increase property values. You know, people want to go to that neighborhood, send their kids to that school, and the value of your house will then go up. And that's one of the things you need to look at. You might not live in that house forever in the next to Esperanza, but whoever comes in next, you know, will want to have their kids go to Esperanza, and the value of your home would be more.
And
So-
you make such a great point because when people are shopping for homes, they look at, for the most part, they look at what are the best schools in those
All right,
areas.
and what's affordable, and what's a good school.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that.
And don't forget our young voters.
Yes,
No, no,
our high
I'm
school.
saying
Cannot
not
forget
important.
those
All right.
Not all voters,
I think we have
for the
to,
most part,
yeah.
but the ones that are most
Right.
consistent
And turn it out.
statistically, that turnout
Right.
are overly difficult.
And based
So
on the
it
number
is.
based on the votes that we lost the previous elections by, I mean, a couple of hundred of 18-year-olds or 19-year-olds or 20-year-olds that would have come out and vote would have made a difference. So,
Thank you, very good.
thank you.
Mr. Crouch, did you have anything else to
Yes,
say?
I'm just, one comment. I believe that most of our community that are involved in the schools, that have children in the schools or grandchildren in our schools, understand that the forward progress that Sunnyside has made. I think there's a large portion of our community, though, is by things they've seen in the media, and they don't think that Sunnyside has progressed. They don't understand what we're doing, and I think we need to figure out a way to reach those voters that don't have a direct connection to our school, to let them know what successes we've had, what programs are in place that are really working, and to let them understand what's happening in the schools. And so I think as part of the process, we need to reach out to all of these voters in our community, not just the ones that are connected to the schools. That was my comment.
Thank you. We're good? Thank you so much. Stay there. More information. The salary schedule?
You want me to start? That's why you put my name first. Good evening, President Crouch, members of the board, audience. Mr. Encinas and myself are bringing forward the projected and proposed teacher salary schedule that has the additional 5% that was passed by the governor and legislator, and will enhance what it is that we're already doing. I think one of the things that when Mr. Encinas and I were sitting there and he was writing this up, and we were talking about what we have seen change since Mr. Holmes has been the superintendent, and this within the salary schedules for our teachers, and being able to draw some of the best individuals into our district, because that salary schedule does make a difference for us and who we draw. That he did some comparisons, and he shared those comparisons with you on what a first-year teacher would make in the first year of Mr. Holmes' superintendency till what they're making now. And you could see the growth and the increases. And I think what was startling to us was the percentages that were shown in each of those categories, because he took a step one employee.
That was hired back in 2015-16 as a brand new teacher making $33,000. With this revised schedule, that person will be making $42,034, which is 27% increase in 4 years. One of the things that the governor and the legislature wanted districts to do is increase salaries by 20%. We've already exceeded that under your guidance, your commitment, your support, your approval, and the superintendent's commitment to make that a priority. So we see ourselves really fulfilling that promise to our educators that we are very serious and really take seriously the issue that teachers deserve to be paid a better wage.
Right, better wage.
So
we're seeing that in dropping the monies that the governor and the legislation are giving us into our salary schedules. And I think Mr. Holmes has been so supportive in the fact that that money goes there. And we're one of the few districts who have done that. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate. And I know the teachers do appreciate the same way.
Just, Ms. Quintero, just to clarify, part of why we've seen these increases is that when Prop 123 passed, which was controversial, governing board committed to implementing the new salary schedules that were done as a result of the compensation studies. I just remember
We had no salary.
we had no salary schedules, and so as a result of that, people that had been frozen got placed back where they should have been had they, because for their commitment. So the increases represent the combination of people being placed back appropriately, combined with the last couple of increases from the governor's budget, which was the 10% last year, coupled with the 5% this year, coupled with the step increases that we've been given as well. So that's why you see one big difference that I have to note, because I think as I look at the colleagues across the city, what a lot of people are doing are flat increases across the board. I mean flat dollar increases. In other words, the higher you go, the less the percentage becomes. So if we were to do a flat $3,500 increase, it benefits the lower end employee versus the higher employee in disproportionate percentages. And so I think what we've done consistently and will plan to continue to do as long as we get the money from the state would be to make sure the increases are percentage as what was, I think, intended to be flat increases in percent, not flat increases in dollar amounts, but actually total percentage increases. So what you see here could look disproportionate relative to this work, but you got to remember that the people that had been with Heroes the longest were the ones that were staying kind of stagnant for many years. So they got bigger bumps on the onset because of them being frozen. So I just want to clarify why you see such a difference here, but more importantly for tonight, we're approving a salary schedule that represents the next iteration of the 5%, which is over and on top of the step that has of 2% that's already, roughly 2% that's given to employees already.
And it's a good comment.
Yeah.
The point that you make is that what the district has done, the governing board has done, is made up for those years of little freezes. People are placed on the schedule based on the number of years that they've been with the district. So all those years that they were frozen and saw no salary increase were made up when the schedule was implemented.
When we migrated everybody on,
Placed them on.
yeah, and placed them on the salary schedule, we took those years in consideration and placed them accordingly to their years of experience.
And with
And with the district, yes.
So, January 2020, it will change?
no.
No,
No,
This is a
I mean,
certified-
right,
this is
but I
certified.
mean, there's another kick for
for classified.
For
For
classified
classified,
employees,
yeah.
we're mandated to increase the minimum wage from $11 an hour to $12 an hour.
right.
The schedule that we're going to propose for the governing board in December to
December.
take effect January 1st will reflect an increase wherever there's $11 as a minimum wage, will go up to
Go up to
$12.
$12.
So classified employees will start making $12 an hour effective January 1st.
Okay,
But they won't impact this schedule.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
they're separate.
Okay, it's two
Yeah,
separate,
Yeah,
okay.
classified, certified, P&T, administration.
Okay,
This is just the certified.
okay, thank you. Mr. Holmes?
Just to clarify, as we go into what's actually being proposed, if you'll notice, there's a base salary, so that's what's base pay out of M&O. The next two buckets do fluctuate, because that's our Prop 301 dollars, and we want to make sure that that's real clear. They've stayed the same. We've been fortunate for them to stay the same for the last 2 years, but there will be times where, depending where the 301 dollars are for that year, where it may go up or they may go down. Those are those two Prop 301 011 and 301 013. So just so you know, those may change relative to what money would come with 301. So just right now, this is where it stands with the base. So when we do the increase, we're always going to be doing increases to the base pay, right? 301 sits separate from the base, and then you'll see the total salary for BA. I just want to make sure that we're all clear that increases go to the M&O base. 301 buckets, 1 and 3, which is represented, which we call them that. They have actually code names. They're actually code 11 and 13. We call them 1 and 3 for short. Are buckets that will, or dollar amounts that may fluctuate over time. Again, they're remaining the same as they were from last year, which are an increase. And there's an additional compensation that's not reflected in this salary schedule. That's their performance pay. Performance pay is what you voted on this last governing board meeting, which comes at a different payment, which is based upon their completion of Exhibit G, which is what we've landed on for this year, along with what their performance evaluation is, and then the scores of the school. So those three combined make up another dollar amount, which can be up to about $4,600? $4,400 in addition to this base pay. So for example, a teacher with a bachelor's under the new salary schedule, with a bachelor's will have a base pay, for a fifth-year teacher will have a base pay of $37,084, with the additional two Prop 123 buckets for a total of 42,034 for their salary for this upcoming school year. That's a fifth-year teacher. That's one that's going into their fifth year, right? Because they've been now, in addition to that money, they can earn $4,400 more for this school year based upon their performance, right? So a fifth-year teacher can earn up to close to 46.5, right around there.
And we talked about bucket 2 last time. And I know they're confusing.
Thank you for explaining that, because I think that's really important, because those numbers can fluctuate.
Yes.
Any other questions?
We've been able to manage
Manage
that,
it.
this amount pretty well. One of if you recall, one of the criticisms that District TUSD ran into a couple of years ago was that they were not distributing all their Prop 301 monies, which is basically that bucket number 2. We're fortunate enough to be able to project what the additional funds will be for next year, and also project the number of eligible teachers that would be. So I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to at least maintain the amount of $1,750 and the $3,200 for the next 2-3 years. Unless there's a drastic increase,
Increase, yeah.
we'll increase it. But as far as the
Okay.
decrease, I don't foresee.
Thank you.
And sometimes teachers have a hard time understanding that piece, that we have to explain it a little more in depth about why they're separated. But after a while, they get it.
Do
Mr.
we,
Hernandez?
do we provide any information before the beginning of the school year to break that down? Okay.
With the salary schedule, yes, and that's probably want to go on to the next piece? Can you go on to the?
Oh, the timeline,
The
yes.
timeline, please. Perfect intro to the timeline. Because one of the things that we have to do in HR now is to educate and to then do the letters of, well, they're called, we call them the salary adjustment letters, because we don't issue new contracts. That would just, we never do that. What we do is we take the new salary schedule, we put it into the iVision system, and then we start checking and making sure that everybody's where they're supposed to be, because they've already gotten their step, and then make the adjustment to what their new step is going to be, and that's what their adjustment is going to come in. And we're going to start working on that. Well, actually, they started working on that today. Ms. Emsley met with the HR specialists and anybody who plays a role in this process of what it is that they're going to be doing for the next few weeks to ensure that people are in the correct step, they're in the correct column, and their contract that was issued was correct, so that we can then start creating what it is for the letters that we need that will be mailed out by July 15th, that all certified staff members, and remember, your certified staff are your classroom teachers, your librarians, and your counselors, who will receive these adjustments. And the adjustments will come from the proposed salary schedule. And when we send out those adjustments, we'll educate them on how we did this, how to read the salary schedule, where they're going to be placed, because remind them that they already got their step, because we did that already in the first round when we issued contracts. And hope to get those out by the week of July 15th, so that they all have them before they come back to school, and so then payroll can stay on their schedule that they have for the first payday for classroom teachers and anybody who starts in those pre-service days, the last week of July.
Thank you.
So we're up to step 30. Do we have many people past that?
Absolutely, we do.
We have
We do.
about 12.
Yeah, about
Who are topped
12
out.
Who are topped out. And where we call are on phantom steps, because they get an increase, and just like if you get topped out in classified star, you get topped out on this, who move into a phantom step that is within our system. We refer to them as like 30A, 30B, and they may or may not.
They
They could slide back.
They're
and
still
go
going to
back.
be. because of the 5% increase.
Oh, that's right,
There won't
yeah.
be anybody 30A or 30B. They'll be all brought up in the schedule. So everybody will be on the schedule with this revision.
With this
There won't be anybody outside the schedule. Already
Because
checked.
you already checked, okay,
Yes.
good for you. So they'll stay on the schedule, and then we'll look at it then next year. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Holmes? Ms. Dawn?
I move that we approve the proposed 2019-2020 certified salary schedule as presented.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Dong?
Yes.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye.
Ms. Hernandez? Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.
More information. The AWARE grant?
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Holmes. I'm very pleased. We've had some good news with the salary schedule and a proposed override, hopefully. And I'm bringing to you today some information about a grant that we have been awarded by the state. But before I go any further in terms of the presentation, I'd like to have the people from the State Department share a message with you.
Good evening, President Crouch, Superintendent Holmes, members of the board, and Sunnyside community. I'm Rebecca Astorga, the AWARE Project Director with the Arizona Department of Education.
My name is Yasmina Lutzinger, and I am the AWARE Project Coordinator with the Department of Education.
We are thrilled to welcome Sunnyside Unified School District as a sub-grantee for Project AWARE. The Arizona Department of Education, in partnership with the Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System Access, are awardees for the 5-year AWARE grant through SAMHSA, the Center for Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
The purpose of Project AWARE is to increase awareness of and access to mental health supports for school-age youth across the state. Sunnyside Unified School District is one of 3 sub-grantees that were chosen by the Department of Education and Access to participate in increased planning and additional supports.
Well, Sunnyside has already shown us some great enthusiasm, and they are eager to move the initiative forward for this grant to connect students to improve mental health services and supports and to reduce the stigma surrounding mental health issues statewide.
Yeah. Welcome to the team, Sunnyside. I know our excitement to have you on board goes all the way to the top, so here is a special message from Superintendent Hoffman to cheer you along. Have a good night.
Hi, Sunnyside. We are so excited to welcome you as a partnering district for Project AWARE. We are proud of your commitment to improving student mental health and wellness throughout your district and the state. We look forward to working with you and your team to continue to make Arizona schools a welcoming space for all students and families.
Very nice.
Appreciate that. So we were very pleased that we had that message from the state. And as you know, you can't go very far in many circles without hearing the importance of mental health awareness and services for students and families. And so everywhere we go, we talk about trauma-based learning and things like that. So we are very pleased to be able to offer this grant, and it's advancing wellness and resiliency in education. And so the way it came about was sort of a unusual way to receive a grant. Last year, Superintendent Holmes received a request from the state, and with not a whole lot of information about were we interested as a district to participate, if they were funded, to participate in a mental health awareness and services grant. Well, of course, so we said, and the superintendent was all for it, and not only that, but we had to turn that letter back that same day. We had less than 6 hours to make a decision and to get the letter of support back to the state. And so we didn't hear anything back for quite a while. But then we heard that they had in fact been awarded a 5-year grant through SAMHSA. So the state received a portion of it, and then the districts who agreed to participate also received a cut of that money available. And so at the time, there were 3 districts, well, there still are, but Piñon Unified School District, which is a very small district, I believe up in northern Arizona, they were not able to participate. So the participating district became Babukivari. And so these are the 3 school districts that are participating. And so our grant funding cycle is from October 1, 2018. So actually year 1 is almost over, even though we just received the money in late April. So that's the way kind of grants work. Yes, ma'am.
Very quickly, did we lose that?
We didn't lose it. We have the money that was it's a little bit less than we were going to be awarded once Babukivari came on board, because it's a little bit bigger. That the division of monies was a little bit less than we had anticipated, and I'll show you in a minute what the award was. We didn't lose the money. We just have to expend funds in this first year, which is going to go through September 30th. And so as much as we can. And so the state said, okay, just start hiring. Well, how much money are we getting? Well, we don't know yet, but just start hiring people, post your positions. And so we knew that we had, they knew a part of the challenge of this grant, and that's why I'm so grateful to my colleagues as well, as we've all been thought partners on this, to try to figure out what is this going to look like. The state isn't quite sure either, because it's brand new. They just know we have money for mental health awareness and for training as well as services. And what we ended up deciding to base it on was what we had in the old days, as a wonderful program called the Family Resource and Wellness Center. And so we had that to base our dreams on. We started working from that premise to say, how can we create sort of a mobile version of that Family Resource and Wellness? So that's what we have done. And so, like I said, the grant application was due on April 19th, but the funding cycle began back in 2018, October. We put in, Dr. Dawson was instrumental, of course, and he's so experienced with grants and writing narratives and logic models, which I'll, project in a minute, that was so helpful to have us take those ideas and have him translate that into a narrative that goes up to the state. So our official notice was in May, I believe. I think the grant application notice was in March. We weren't awarded until late April, and that's the amount we ended up with. It was going to be more, but that's what we ended up with. And so they had said, well, we know that won't give you enough money to have one mental health professional in every school. Well, that's not anywhere near what we would need, but then we could create that concept that we had in the past of a Family Resource and Wellness Center. And so that's what we did. And so these are the goals, as you heard our colleagues at the state level, to provide training and help people be aware of what are some of the signs of possible mental health issues, and that everyone at a faculty, in a school, in a building would be able to have some training in the detection of possible mental health issues. And then we would have the connection to students and families with the actual mental health professionals. Three mental health professionals and a project manager that we've hired so far. And so that's what we plan to do. We also want to enter into a formal agreement with a behavioral health organization. So whatever the scope, if the people who are hired in the district, the students and families they are working with, the issues are beyond their scope, then we can also have a built-in system for referring them out to other behavioral health organizations. So they will also help us with the planning. Did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Just a comment.
Oh, no, of course.
I'm really interested to see how this plays out with our in-school and out-of-school suspension. I feel like if we're able to provide the resources on how we can de-escalate situations,
Yes,
maybe this will.
absolutely.
Just a comment.
Absolutely. And oh, by the way, I'll bring that later. We're making some changes to this.
That was next.
But I digress. So I'm very pleased and grateful to our team. This was the development team. We all came together and brought our hopes and dreams into that discussion, and we had some real hefty discussions. We're still having them because this is being created at the state level from the ground up, and they're looking to us to see what are we going to create. And so they've already been down here to visit Sunnyside, and Dr. Dawson took them on a tour of the district. So they were interested to see, okay, now that you're talking about it, I want to see where are these schools. So they're looking to Sunnyside to see what kind of a model we're going to create. And on that note, we have hired a project manager, and that is a mandatory component of the grant, because the project manager is a person who coordinates all the pieces, ties everything together, as well as creates the reports that go to the state, that talks about how many people are we serving, what have we done, what does that look like. And our project manager is here with us tonight. I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Allen. And you probably have recognized that name because Elizabeth is not new to our district in a way, because I'll let her tell you why we know her so well.
It's true. I've actually come from Arizona Department of Education under the School Improvement Unit, and I have had the fortune of serving your district for the last 5 years. I'm traveling to different schools that have been in school improvement and helping them put systems into place. So that's why it's easy to transition in.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We look forward to working with Liz throughout. See, we know her so well, we call her Liz. And so we're very pleased about that. And so this is what we want to do. We have also hired 3 mental health professionals. Let me just say that they are not called counselors and they are not called social workers, even though they may have that certification, but under the umbrella of AWARE, they will be called mental health professionals. So we've hired 3 people who were in our district as counselors, as guidance counselors, and they have been hired as mental health professionals, the ones that have the counseling certification. We are looking to hire 2 additional people. One will be a lead mental health professional with a social work background, who can also supervise that the additional social worker certification, to be able to look at the hours. You know, they have to be represented, supervised by someone that has the proper certifications. The LSCW. Dr. Williams, I never remember what those are. LSCW or LCS. There you go. So that's why we're holding off on those 2, and those positions are posted. So there will be 5 mental health professionals, and then Liz is the project manager. That's what we have. And they will be housed at Los Ranchitos. There's a classroom that we're converting there, and they will travel to sites as needed. And so they'll begin working this summer. We're going to work together to try to have all the plans ready, and so that we can figure out what the model will look like and then what the procedures and protocols are going to be. So that's basically, I wanted to make it very simple. I don't know if my colleagues, Dr. Dawson is here, and NJ Utter was one of our colleagues that worked on the development, and of course Dr. Williams. And so we also brought a group of counselors from the schools to kind of sit with us and vet some of that information out there. And our next step now is to bring everybody together, along with the mental health professional at the organizational level in the community to help us with that development. So we look forward to it. Again, it's a 5-year grant. We had to hit the ground running simply because the clock starts ticking back in October, and we get funded in April. So we look forward to it, and we will keep you posted on how we're doing. And I will make sure I come back and also in Friday reports to give you information, of course, to the superintendent and the DOT. So, any questions that you have for us?
Ms. Dunn?
I'm really excited about this. As you know, it's something we've been talking about this entire school year, about the need for, this type of a project and programs at the schools as far as mental health issues are concerned, and for the money to be dropped in our lap was fantastic. I know it's not as much as we need for the issue, but it's definitely a good start, and it'll be a good start to give us as far as the program itself is concerned. Welcome aboard, Liz. I'm always glad that we have somebody with expertise from ADE as far as filling out the reports are concerned. Those are a drop in the hat for you, I'm sure, because this might be a little bit of a different grant, but you've done so many and have reviewed so many of them, so you understand the importance of the reports and making sure that those are done correctly so that we can continue to receive the money and hopefully get an extension after the 5 years, and maybe even more money at that point in time. But I feel that this is going to be a good start and give us an opportunity to have a good project developed. And then after we get that, then maybe we can start asking for some more grants, because we'll know where the holes are and the things that we need to do. I am really, was really saddened when we closed the Wellness Center, because it really served such an important part in our district, and it was always had so many people there being served, and that program had been developed so well by the personnel that worked there. And so I'm glad to see that even though we don't have an opportunity at this yet to do a full-scale wellness center program, we at least are going to be able to start touching on what we are now, what we lost, and maybe someday get back to the model that we had during that time.
It was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Crouch, have any questions? Mr. Crouch?
No, I don't have any questions, but I do want to thank everyone that was involved in getting it rolling with such short notice and doing it so well. Thank you.
Yeah, there was no pressure, right?
No pressure. The superintendent handles pressure very well.
Really.
Exactly.
So glad you didn't have to leave. Mr. Hernandez?
I'd like to thank everyone who was a part of making this happen. I'm really excited to see how it plays out, and looking forward to an update to see.
Yes.
I don't know if that's possible, but would we be able to have an update on, for example, how many referrals were made, or a breakdown of the program later on? How would that work?
Of course. Are you saying in terms of referrals to this grant program?
Yes.
Of course, and that's one of the requirements of the grant, that we
okay.
have to, in order for us to apply for the second, even though it's a 5-year award, we have to technically apply each year for that. And one of the requirements is that we have to submit data, how many families and students did we serve, how many trainings were provided, what faculties, how many people. So absolutely, and we'll be sure to share that information, because I know that's a great interest to all of us.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Great
Thank you very
presentation.
much.
Thank you. 2019-20 curriculum overview and tech expenditures.
You want to drive here, Victor? All right.
Oh gosh, start the time.
It's in the dark web.
Where's the buzzer? I know, he's not going to start the
They're all
timer
walking
yet.
away.
Don't start the timer.
Good evening, President Crouch, Governing Board members, Superintendent Holmes. Surprise, it's me again. 'Tis the season. But tonight, Mr. Bach and I are going to present our annual curriculum update that has particularly has to do with the open ed resources and the digital curriculum choices that we have in play. So, the good news is we do not have a lot of changes in curriculum this year, which makes it nice for implementation and for teachers to be able to just spend the time digging deeper. The ELA curriculum resources that you have, that's nothing new there. We're just continuing to deepen the work. You heard Ms. Schroeder talking about some of the ELA work that's going on, and Mr. Holmes mentioned the ELA cadre, ELA lab school work that's going on as well. In mathematics, we have currently, as you well know, we have the adoption process in play. That window closes, I believe, next week, or 2 weeks.
Tomorrow.
Oh, or tomorrow. Surprise. That is there, that has been a piece that's been in play and has been piloted before, so it's not a big lift for implementation that's there. Looking at additional piloting, you'll see it in 9-10. High school will be our big work next year around aligning adoption materials, actually formally going out for adoption, in the OER space, not looking to go out for purchase as well. Science, the new standards are really making the biggest change in science and social studies, or social sciences as it's now called. And so you see the units of study, and Dr. Hackett, so fun to say that, Dr. Hackett has some curriculum teams coming together next week or the week after, that are working on developing those units. So again, utilizing open ed resources, not purchasing, but creating aligned calendars, units of study, similar to the work that we've done in the past. You also see something similar there for social sciences. Mr. Frank McCormick takes the lead for us on that work. He has groups as well. They started the C3 framework inquiry units 2 years ago. We talked to you a little bit about that last year. Those continue to grow and change around the new social science standards. He also is working with the Sun teachers. He was with them today, doing some work around that C3 framework and the inquiry units to really start to create some tighter alignment with standards and some of the work with Sun, as we talked about in a study session not that long ago. The other pilot the other adoption piece that we have out currently is new AP U.S. history. That's out. That's just for AP U.S. history. Assessment and intervention resources. FastBridge came on new last year. That was our new reading assessment for Move On When Reading that we use, that replaced RAPS 360 or Mind Play from before. So we're continuing with that. Nothing new that you see there. Those are continued resources. These will be the recommendations for discontinuation, the resources that we are no longer going to be currently using in that space. Mr. Holmes.
Just so I can comment on this. So part of our plan this year was to try to clean up some of the math, particularly at the high school. Some of these courses, I think, were not courses that led to this idea of college and career readiness. And so we have a whole new sequence that I'll be presenting later this evening in exec. But that's kind of the makeup of looking at these courses that were just kind of by name lower level, but we're not really providing the rigor that we needed for our students. So that you'll see in what happened with the math in particular. Integrated science, what was not mentioned is that there are new science standards, and the expectation of what students start with, particularly as freshmen, is moved now to biology as the starting place. As you remember, those of you that kind of have known the system, we've started with like an integrated science design or an environmental kind of, it's kind of varied, and biology has always been the sophomore. So now that's becoming now the freshman class have to take biology, followed by an applied physics course, and sophomore year then going into the chemistry. So it is a significant shift. I know Dr. Hackett's been working with the science. I just don't want to downplay that. Part of why you don't see integrated science, why we're moving away from it, is because the new expectation from the state is that bio becomes that first course that students were taking. So again, that means those current freshmen will now move into that new sequence of courses.
Ms. Hernandez?
Apart from the required changes, how often do we review the online curriculum?
How often do we?
Review the online curriculum?
We review the online curriculum annually. Mr. McCormick, Mr. Baca and I share him, and he also runs usage reports on the paid subscription ones, which we're down to.
I'll get into a lot of detail on that in the next session and talk a little bit about it. But as we get to this point where we're looking at next year's curriculum, part of the closing of each year is for us to kind of look at what has been our usage this year, what areas have there been struggles, and what areas are there additional needs, and then we use that information to help determine what direction we're going to go, what recommendations are going to come to you today. So I'll go into a little more detail on that in a minute when I get to my slide.
And just to add on to that, we also have the teacher cadre groups that meet throughout the year. So all the content areas have teacher groups that meet around the curriculum resources. So there are oftentimes kind of mid-course corrections and real-time changes that are occurring. So the annual review of it is sort of a accumulation of the work that those teachers did over the year, making goals to say, okay, what's going to happen in the summer, and then what are we doing moving forward?
So you are talking to the teachers to see what their challenges were? Or are you talking to the students that went through the program?
Both.
Both, okay.
As part of the data collection on just the usage side or the effectiveness side, there's data that comes from both the student level data and actually, I would say more of that data when it comes to instructional resources is student level data. That's the majority of the analysis that goes around that. But the teacher level data is also looked at, and then on the operational side, we look at what our operational needs are. So, yeah.
Mr. Holmes?
And just to clarify, because there's kind of two levels of analysis. One is there's the actual curriculum that teachers teach that's kind of been adopted, right? So that's your ELA, the EL curriculum, the Illuminate, the things. I mean, the illustrative math, the units that they created, the Springboard. That is kind of our adopted curriculum, which goes through iterations every year that are based upon teacher input, and then in summer work that they kind of mix ideas and then create maybe a change in that unit. So there's that level review. There's also the programs that we look on that are much more kind of a cost-based model where we look at effectiveness and whether we need to continue. And that goes into like usage reports. There's kind of two different layers, right? There's the what I use every day kind of analysis with teacher input. Then there's the what are we purchasing kind of stuff that we have to look at. Is it really effective? Can we find it either cheaper or a better product, or do we need to make another investment into something that's more available as an open educational resources? So that's where what you're hearing today is a combination of both, is just giving you an update what we're doing next year in curriculum, but also what are the purchase decisions we're making to support the curriculum along with some of the technology pieces that help make all this work. So I don't want to confuse everything, but there really are kind of three layers to this. Again, the everyday use curriculum, the purchase kind of content that we look at, whether it's working every year, and then there's the resources to help support all that from a technology space, which may not be content specific, but maybe the data systems that we're using or the assessment structures.
Ms. Hernandez?
So can you just explain what you mean by usage? Is it that we offer these programs to our teachers, and if they decide to use this in their classroom, is that what you mean by usage?
Yeah, well, not if they decide to use it in the classroom. I mean, it gets to Mr. Holmes' kind of differentiation between the type of software we're referring to, but I want to give you kind of an example. There's an everyday classroom management software known as Hapara, and it's more on the operational. This is instructional. It facilitates the delivery of instruction, and it facilitates the ability for the teacher to to communicate with his or her students, to receive content from the students, to monitor what their daily, what their activities are on a given period. A usage report will look at to see how many student interactions with Hapara took place in first quarter, in second quarter, in third quarter, and we want to see that number one is the investment we're making into to pay for Hapara is we're getting a return on that investment, that we see that teachers are actively utilizing it, because that then we can know whether it's something that teachers feel is an important part of their tool set, or if it's something we can look elsewhere if it's no longer an important part of the tool set. That's just one small example. And then at the same time, we also see teachers. And it's, I could go a long history here, but over the last 5 to 10 years, there's been an evolution from teachers migrating towards different type of resources, and we'll see that play itself out when we look at the usage reports. We'll see that this was a heavily relied on resource maybe 2-3 years ago, and we just slowly start to see it tapering off. And then this other piece starts to pick up. And we use that to inform our decisions to say our teachers are expressing a need for this type of product or this type of tool. And then we come to curriculum and we have conversations like how important is it that we look for enhancing that need, acquiring new products that satisfy that need, or making a more cost-effective purchase that no longer, if we see the tapering off, we're no longer going to continue to invest in that product. And so that's one example of how we look at the usage reports to make decisions about, do we abandon a product, do we continue it, do we enhance it? A little bit of information on that.
And one of the requests that the teachers have made to us multiple times is they don't want to constantly switch resources. So it is this, they want to find, and we've been very intentional at kind of culling and selecting those resources. And then really our lesson learned of getting those teacher groups to go deep in implementation. And we're starting to see that now pay off. Our high school group just finished with their springboard. They revamped their pacing calendars and some of their maps, but it's their request has been over and over to us, don't constantly, do that every 3 years. Here's the next new thing, to find out what we're doing and learn to do it well. So that's been a big piece of sort of the work that we do, looking at the end of the year to say, okay, especially from their user end, how does that need to look different? What else do we need to do with that piece that's there?
So this is just a summary of some of those. Ms. Benton referenced some of the curriculum inspection windows that's required by policy and by statute that we post, and we notify the public that we're considering adopting this particular curriculum. So we post that. Every school office posts it. These are the example memos that are out there. As I mentioned, one closes tomorrow, 6/12. The other one closes in end of January. Beginning of July. So these, and then once that window closes, we will come back with another agenda item to the board to recommend the approval, since we've received input from the and we've given the public an opportunity to review that curriculum.
So I do have
Ms.
a
Quintero,
question.
yeah.
How many parents actually look at that and give you feedback?
I can say for this window, we've had 0. We've had no. Now in previous review windows, we've had a handful. I wouldn't put it in the dozens. I'd put it in a handful where there's a question. What we do is we provide them with access to the resource as if they were a student, or in some cases what the teacher looks like, and then just they can spend the time reviewing how much time they need.
Okay, Ms. Hernandez.
Just to piggyback on Ms. Quintero, so how do we engage with our parents so they can give feedback?
Well, this is one way. There's a variety of others, but this particular one way is by noticing. We post this on our website, and every school office gets the same notification saying we are considering, for example, adopting AP US History curricula, and please come visit us if you would like to understand what that curriculum looks like, and we will provide you full access to it.
So it's posted on the website, and then it's sent out individually to the schools. Then from there, the schools do what?
Well, they're notified that if anyone is interested in looking at it and spending however much time is needed to fully review it, they can come to our office, and we will provide them with a workstation with a workplace and full access to it. Since it's on online content, we also would be able to provide them with a guest account where they don't even have to be in the office. They can go home. They can take that guest account, log in from home if they have internet access.
Do you know if we email our parents, and this is why I asked this, is because normal people don't really go to our website on a regular basis. Do you know if we do?
We do not email it for the notification of new adoptions. I mean, that's not a standard practice. We do have parent email accounts, and we do have systems, parent communication systems, such as our what we refer to as robocalling system, known as Bright Arrow. And that's something that we could certainly implement, a process by which when we encounter a curriculum adoption, we could send out a mass notification, just a phone message, and in that phone message it goes email and SMS text to notify them of that. And I'd certainly be more than happy to incorporate that process as we do future adoptions.
One of the pieces that hasn't been necessarily part of the adoptions that the schools do is in their beginning of the year, they'll share out what those resources are. Not because it's the adoption piece, but the parent interest there tends to be a lot higher. You know, from the school, sort of what resources are my kids using this year? So we've typically seen it there. Historically, not a lot of input unless we're doing certain kinds of curriculum. Yeah.
Just to add one more comment to how parents are engaged in the process. It's not so much a feedback request, but when every child goes through a digital driver's license at the beginning of the school year, and they go through concepts such as online safety. Parents, as they take a laptop home, are required to, with that student, acknowledge the responsibilities associated with being, and in that there are pointers to our website and our curriculum resources, showing what resources our students will be using. And so that's another means by which we inform parents about what this year's content looks like. If you go to our Learn page, there's a whole section dedicated to what our resources are, and we do find that there is a lot, a moderate level of parent accessing that side of our online resources.
Mr. Holmes?
Yeah, and we can certainly incorporate. I mean, that's a reasonable request. It's been a compliance level kind of approach, quite frankly, and so I think it can be more substantive in our way. The adoption process has always kind of taken that approach because it's been this, and working in the online space has kind of compounded kind of this nebulous idea of it. It used to be when we do mass adoptions, if you guys remember, I'm like dating myself, when we had the books where you had all these displays, right? So you'd have them at at the library, but it would always kind of be a central location, and it's mirroring that in an online space hasn't really played out in that way, right? And so how do we make it play out in the way that it used to be, where you would have them? Remember, they have the displays, right, for 60 days, and people would come. Not a lot of people would come anyway, right? I mean, we'd have only a few people, but there may be a better way of us putting that information out to get more better feedback. If we're getting zero, that means no one's really good. Doesn't mean they don't care, it just means we're not probably. So we can work on a better as we're moving forward on this, particularly in the online space.
Very easy
That's
process
good.
to incorporate. So I mean, the light bulb went off when you raised that concept. I'm like, yeah, that's a simple thing. Turn on an auto call for everybody. Let them know a new curriculum is being adopted. It'll go out to the entire community, and then that'll probably create more interest for parents to be able to come in and review it.
Ms. Dunn?
Oh, sorry, Ms. Dunn.
No, that was basically what you stated was what I was going to say. Back in the day, we used to get this group of books and take it to the elementary school and put it there for parents to come when they dropped off their kids or picked up their kids, and in the hopes that they would look at it and review the curriculum. And we got a handful that was really exciting. But even when people came and saw the actual textbooks there and had the opportunity to stay and look at it because, they were waiting for their kids, it just, for whatever reason, it just never really occurred there was a handful, and it was at least, we were in compliance. We had it out there, and for whoever wanted to take a look at it, and for those people that did want to look, they could just come through the textbooks themselves. But it is difficult to, and it's a good idea to put it out online to see if we have any more hits from that than we've had in the past from any other thing that we've tried.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the second part of this discussion is to give you a little bit overview, as Ms. Benton described, it's an annual process, as Ms. Hernandez asked. This is an annual process. It's not an event. It's an ongoing thing. It's continually being looked at. we do wrap it up by this time of the year because we're looking forward to next year and what we need to acquire, what we need to renew. And so this is has been an ongoing process for several years now, and we've kind of reached this part where we develop a annual expenditure plan, and that expenditure plan is precisely aligned to every discussion that went on in the curriculum side about what particular resources do need to be renewed. And so Ms. Benton referenced a lot of open educational resources, and those aren't even all indicated here on this plan because there's no cost associated with them. And because this side of it is really to just help the board understand what are our annual costs. And so this bottom section's, those gray areas instructional. And each of these items was referenced in one way or another in what Ms. Benton's previous slides. Our diagnostic screener, that's what she referenced, FastBridge. That's how for our Move On When reading students, how they're diagnosed. The math, different credit recovery math resources, high school math, all of the different content that's provided for high school math. That's this line item. So I can go down the list and I won't read them all to you, but you can kind of see what that looks like, and that's precisely aligned to the curriculum conversations. But equally important are what we refer to as the operational costs. And those operational costs are not necessarily instructional. Some of it, there's a little bit of overlap of instructional. For example, PowerSchool is one of our operational costs. We need to resubscribe to PowerSchool every year. There's an annual subscription cost, and that's $95,000. That's the Student Information System line item M right there. So similarly, there's other operational costs, like our annual Microsoft licensing subscription, so that our office staff and teachers have the ability to have a currently licensed version of Microsoft Office on their laptops. Another example. So other pieces of this are PD management software, our health management system, our IEP management system. And again, I won't read them all to you, but I just wanted to give you an understanding, kind of like, we look at this every year, we look to see what we can abandon, what costs, a good example is this health management system. We used to spend about $18,000 a year for a health management system called Health Master. And in the last 3 years, Pima County helped develop a system called CareDocs that they provide at zero cost to all school systems. So as we were reaching the point of, do we need Health Master? No, we have this alternative system. Can we abandon the cost, the one that has annual cost, and can we move to CareDocs? It took a couple of times, a couple of iterations, working with Dr. Favela, working with the nurses, saying, does this system provide meet all the needs of Sunnyside? And by going through that process, we determined, yes, we can eliminate this $18,000 annual cost and move to CareDocs, and we've done so. And so that's why that line item references zero. And one other kind of, just as a not looking backwards too much, but as a historical perspective, this cost, the total cost for all these instructional items is $550,000. In the 14-15 school year, if I highlighted those costs, it was $1.9 million. So I wanted to point that out because we talk about things like right sizing according to the directions that we've changed, our open education resources adoption. That right there alone was a huge cost savings because there are no annually subscription costs to those education resources, but there are professional development costs, but they are a fraction of what it used to cost. Again, I don't want to spend too much time looking backwards, but there was a list that is 3 times as long as this that we would bring to the board at this time of the year, and that was like at $1.8 to $1.9 million annual cost. So those are the kind of the shifts that we've made and the changes we've made. And on a similar basis on the operational side, a lot of it has been reduced. We no longer continue to subscribe to so many systems that we did in the past. We're just trying to keep things simple, stable, reliable, as Ms. Benton referenced. Not have so much frequent change that teachers have to go through learning a new product, and to kind of let them understand and work within this environment. College Board, Springboard, EL, and I referenced them like Hapara. Hapara is an operational thing. It's not something that teachers, it's not a content that they instruct with, but it's a tool that they use to instruct. Before that, we tried out this other management system and that other management system, and we wanted to kind of move away from that and let our teachers get to know and get to use a system that will stick with them for multiple years. And so those are the kind of the strategic decisions that we're making as we're looking at this annual review process. So that's the overview of our operational and instructional costs. most of these things you can see it's categorized by funding source. The most, not most pertinent ones, they're all pertinent, but what I want to point out is the bond fund. That's something that the Bond Advisory Committee has reviewed and approved for the remaining expenditures of our device refresh. So that's the $600,000 cost that we will buy approximately 3,500 new student laptops, and that purchase will help continue to have our students. Those devices tend to last about 3 to 4 years, but they do need to be replaced because after that third or fourth year, they're really not very usable. And so we need to replace those. So that's why we have a refresh cycle based on using those bond funds to continue through the remaining bond funds. The other items are capital and M&O. But what I can say just as a comparison to last year, the big item here of the $1.1 million at capital cost this year is $1,021,000. Last year it was $1,002,000. So there's a slight increase on that, but those are primarily due to kind of the annual slight percentage increase for subscription costs that are typical for most subscription systems. So this is very comparable. The point of that message is this is very comparable to what last year's. There's no large change in either direction, up or down. We're just continuing to renew the existing software, both curriculum software and operational software, like we have had in the last couple of years. So with all of that being said, I hope I went into a little bit of the detail I was referencing. Any questions that we can answer about it? Yes.
I have one more. So I'm looking at the licensing, and it's going to be, we're going to be there until 2021, and then bond money's gone, right?
Yes.
And then do we take M&O money to pay for those?
That's an excellent question. So the bond money that this represents, we eliminated using bond monies for instructional software. So do you want to step in?
Sure. I can just be. It won't take 20 minutes. As you remember, the governor, there's a commitment to restore our capital dollars. One of the things that we have been very intentional about is making sure we get to a point of our refresh cycle being within our capital limits. I feel, based upon the restoration of capital dollars, that we can continue our refresh like we would have done had we'd had adoption cycles. And so I think there's a pretty strong confidence if we get back to this $4 million of capital funds that we should receive annually, that we should be in a position to continue our refresh cycles after the bond sunsets, at least for keeping the refresh up. Again, anything can change within the next 5 to 10 years. They can get rid of capital again, but based upon what we're seeing, we could sustain the refresh with capital dollars moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? No? Ms. Dong?
So I move that we approve the 2019 curriculum update and the 2019-2020 technology expenditure plan as presented.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Dong?
Yes.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye.
Ms. Hernandez? Aye. Ms. Quintero?
Aye. Can we take a 5-minute break before we?
Yeah, let's make a motion. And then
Sure,
we'll take-
sure.
Okay.
Ms. Dong?
I move that we move that the governing board members recess into executive session for discussion of personnel pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A1.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Dong?
Yes.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye.
Ms. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye. We'll take a 5-minute break before going in. Okay. Thank you. Stretch.
Oh, that's funny. No, I thought it was funny. I appreciate it. Are you going to the restroom?
No, I'm just gonna go get set up.
Oh, okay.
You're more than welcome. Yeah.
I'll just grab that one. You go to the one. This one.
recommend that we approve the appointment of Alex Urquidez, Assistant Principal at Sierra 2-8 for the 2019-2020 school year and be placed on step 1.
Roll call.
Ms. Dong?
Yes.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye.
Ms. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye. Ms. Dunn?
Ms. Quintero, I would like to move that we approve the appointment of Ted Rodriguez, Assistant Principal at Gallego 4-8 Intermediate for the 2019-2020 school year and be placed on step 1.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dong?
Yes.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye.
Ms. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye. And Ms. Dunn?
Ms. Quintero, I move that we approve the appointment of Ryan Powell, Director of Security at the Central Office for the 2019-2020 school year and be placed on step 8.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dong?
Yes.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye.
Ms. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye. Now we're going to go back. That was kind of cruel, actually. Did you see us closing stuff up? We're slamming our laptops. Sorry. That was a good one. That was a good one. That was a good one. I'm all happy closing
Yeah, my wife came back and picked her up, so she was a trooper. She's so good. Yeah. She's really good. She's